Kia ora koutou. Welcome to HR Chats with me, Radar, where we chat all things HR and HR related. Today, setting the foundations for pay transparency. New Zealand is on the verge of a shift in how we talk about pay in the workplace. I'll show you mine if you show me yours. Some people, obviously, for them, it's a bit of an uh-oh moment. For others, they're thinking, great, it is about time. But the Employment Relations Employee Remuneration Disclosure Amendment Bill, what a name. What a mouthful. Aims to make the so-called gag clauses unenforceable, giving employees the legal right to discuss their salaries without fear of reprisal. The bill is a big one. It is a worthy one. And the real story isn't, well, is it around law change or is it around the rising expectations of employees who now have the ability through public websites and various other ways to have a look and see what other people in their particular organisation or indeed others are earning? I don't know anything about it. I'm going to discuss it with an expert. I'm talking to Jessica Pillow, Global Total Rewards Lead at Deel, an all-in-one payroll and HR platform for global teams. Jessica oversees compensation, equity, benefits, perks, and mobility for 100 plus countries and counting. And at Deel, Jessica has led the development of Deel's own compensation philosophy designed to guide pay transparency among its 7,000 staff. She's also a self-proclaimed mini compensation economist. Kia ora, Jessica. Hello.
Hello. Hello. Thanks for that great intro.
Look, I
Fantastic.
tell you what, there is nothing better than hearing someone read out all of your accomplishments.
I know, I know. I'm like, oh, stop. Oh, stop.
But look, I
Stop.
do. Before we start, hey, what is a mini compensation economist?
Okay, so the over the last year, I've really been pushing the concept of compensation, the role of a compensation practitioner shifting into this kind of mini comp economist concept. And really, to me, that just means knowing what's going on in each local market, right? So I'm operating in over 100 countries. It's not a one size fits all, right? So when I think about pay from whether it's between New Zealand, Australia, Belgium, Estonia, it's very different, right? And all the local nuances for each of those countries is very, very different and unique. And so it's having an approach to understand what's going on in those locations. So understanding, because that ultimately impacts the cost of labor.
Absolutely. Well, tell you what, so looking and thinking about all of that, how did your career journey up until this point and what are you doing with Deal?
Yeah, yeah. So I'm overseeing all of Total Rewards at Deal, but have been in the compensation space for 20 years. And that that journey has spanned across many global companies in different industries, in different phases and maturity of business cycles. So, have there's not a lot in the compensation space that surprises me anymore or that I haven't seen. It's an ever-changing environment. And yeah, and here at Deal, I mean, there's no shortage of complexity when you're trying to manage pay for thousands of people in over 100 countries. Yeah, I mean, no shortage of using that 20 years of experience to really apply it to Deal.
Absolutely. Hey, look, pay transparency.
Yeah.
You're sitting there with 100 countries, 20 years of experience. When we hear a lot about pay transparency, but what does it actually mean to you?
Yeah, yeah. In the simplest in the simplest form, it's about being clear, right? So it's not about, okay, I'm going to publish everyone's salary. It's just providing clarity so that people can really understand how that pay is set, what ranges exist, what the company's approach is to compensation, and really being able to just explain to people why they're paid what they're paid, just the why behind it. So in the simplest form, it's just being clear. And I think it's sometimes perceived as this like scary concept or this taboo concept of pay. Um, Even in prior lives, I remember having to actually publish policies internally and enforce those policies internally that said, no, 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 pay is hush hush. You don't talk about it. There could be disciplinary actions. So it's building trust and openness and kind of taking that mystery and taboo out of the topic of pay.
Yeah. From where you're sitting internationally, do you get a sense of where we're sitting down here in Aotearoa, New Zealand, in terms of transparency?
Yeah, I think it definitely a hot topic. The bill is definitely being discussed, and we're keeping a close eye on it. And I think that, countries like New Zealand and others that are thinking about adopting pay transparency, I feel like it's, maybe lagging a little bit compared to other locations like the US, Australia, the UK, Canada that have enacted pay transparency regulation. I feel like countries like New Zealand are lagging, but that's not a bad thing, right? Like it's just all about the pace of change. And I think ultimately, especially with a lot of Gen Z outpacing and entering the workforce, it's the pay to play. It's
Yeah.
people are demanding this type of transparency and information. If not, they're going to go try to find it themselves.
Yeah.
So,
And look, Deel did I think, a survey or study down here, I think, reasonably
mhm.
recently. You found we're pretty
Yeah,
divided, well, evenly
it
divided,
is.
really. I think,
Yeah.
was it comfortable discussing their feelings with salaries with their colleagues? 39% were comfortable. 35% found it a little bit too private, but two-thirds, 65%, actually thought pay transparency was ultimately good for employees.
Yeah, exactly. And it's interesting because those that think it is good for employees were under the age of 35, right? So if you think of where we're at as of today, people have access to more information than they ever have before, right? Because of the internet. And sites like Glassdoor and RepView that offer kind of these self-reported, you can self-report your pay and it's all aggregated. And so if, you can go find the information, you can use ChatGPT to ask for, salary information. And so, the information is there and it's available if you're
Yeah.
if you're willing to go and look for it.
Yeah.
So,
Good.
yeah.
But think about, this from the role of the employee and the individual. How about, pay transparency around businesses? Because they'll be sitting, or people will be listening to this, watching this, on behalf of a business and thinking, wow, that's all well and good. Everybody, all the employees want to know what they're
Yeah.
getting, but how is this going to support the business and the business goals?
I think I think the main thing that I've been advising businesses on is that look at it from a talent attraction perspective, right? So if you're, it really strengthens that talent attraction, right? So candidates know what to expect before they join, right? And that's what they deserve. They want to know that I don't have to worry about pay. I'm joining an organization or I'm with an organization that is paying me fairly. And that there is just going to drive fairness and equity. It really kind of reduces that time wasted on like the guesswork of at the end of the day, you want people to be focused on doing their job, not is the company paying me fairly or competitively? So it takes the mystery and the guesswork out of it. And that, if you're showing that pay is structured and intentional, again, it's taking that mystery out of, what am I being paid and why am I being paid?
Yeah.
I also look at it from a very human behavioral perspective, in that, just naturally, if we don't fully understand something, we're going to start making it up, right? And that can have unintentional consequences. And so, really, it's as the company, put the narrative out there, put it out front in advance. So, so you don't have people that are maybe coming up with their own, theories about pay. So, it is, it's a very mysterious and taboo topic,
Yeah.
but it's taking the guesswork out of it. Yeah, yeah,
Yeah. And yet, I mean, it sounds great when you put it like that, but there's a
I
lot of
know.
employers, I think, that do have concerns about it. What do you think?
Yeah,
What are the main concerns? Are they worried that all of a sudden people are going to say, "Hey, look at the your gender pay gap. It could be ethnic pay gaps. Oh, they're going to see that we're not paying as much as other people." What are the big ones? Do you think?
Yeah, I think you're right. It's exposure. And so, what I think employers are really concerned about is, you're going to enable you're going to enable people to talk and compare notes, right? But at the end of the day, if those differences already exist, the transparency is just going to surface them. So I think the real fear is being caught or being unprepared. And if you're unprepared and you don't have a strong framework, then it's just going to lead to exposure. So the pay transparency isn't creating the inequities, it's revealing them. And I think that that exposure is what companies are fearful of.
Yeah. It's almost, what's the old saying? When the tide goes out,
Yeah,
everything is revealed.
exactly. Yeah,
We're left to
exactly.
see who's not doing, perhaps the best job they could for whatever reason. Hey, look, with the policy coming in, pay transparency, and the need to be prepared, what are the kind of foundational elements that are necessary for that policy when it comes in to be really effective?
Yeah, I've got I mean the amount of times over my career that I've tackled just this, whether it's for pay transparency or not. Whether you are in a country that, is driving pay transparency, it's setting that clear foundation, right? So what is your philosophy? What is your approach to pay? What is your company value? How is your company going to pay? Maybe compensation isn't at the top of the list for your company. Maybe it's benefits or other perks or ancillary things that you offer. But setting that clear philosophy on what your approach is, I think that's the very first step. The other thing is, okay, now that you've determined what your philosophy is, create a consistent and defensible approach in what you're actually doing, right? What market data are you using? How are you structuring your ranges? So it's making sure that foundational element there is really supported. And then the last two things I actually think are the most important is enabling your managers. So, compensation is the most sensitive topic in any organization because it impacts every single person. This is people's pay. This impacts their livelihood. And asking managers to be able to speak to that philosophy and to be able to explain those pay decisions confidently is, if your managers are bought into the philosophy from top down, it's just an easier conversation. And then it's communicating. And I say that it's sharing information proactively. Again, taking the mystique and the taboo and the guesswork out of it. So it's really like, what's that foundation? And then making sure that your managers are bought into it to have those conversations. Because if your managers are bought into it, they're going to be able to speak to it. And then your employees are going to feel very confident, as well.
Yeah. And when it comes to that
Sounds easy.
compensation, it sounds
Sounds
so
easy.
easy. Just it's easy. It's going to be fine. Hey, look,
It's
when it comes to
fine.
that compensation philosophy, you've said, a compensation philosophy is your guiding star.
Yes.
Almost the end
Yeah.
all be all. So when it comes to setting that philosophy and that guiding star, how should employers, approach their philosophy and their compensation strategy?
Yeah. A a lot of people, I find that a lot of leaders, right? So for me, this is a start from the top, right? It's understanding what's important to your leaders, to your board or your shareholders, and leading with principles and not numbers, right? So I think a lot of times the approach to compensation is you're trying to solve a very deeply analytical thing, but it's actually very emotional. And so it's taking the numerical aspect out of it and starting with those principles. And being, again, being very clear on Are you using a global execution versus a local execution? What verified data sources are you using? I think importantly, especially as you think outside of just if you operate in multiple countries, it's something that's really simple and really repeatable and scalable, right? But I think it's uh, really making sure that your senior leaders are bought in from the top down, and understanding what's important to the business, and then how does that translate out to your team.
Yeah. Look, do you think there's a few businesses out there that are thinking, oh, it's just going to cost us a lot of money because
I
it's,
know.
we're going to have to sort of level everyone up, and then I guess the other question around that is, and you would have seen this, what happens to people who are on a higher salary band and suddenly they realize that there's a whole lot of people who've been pulled up to there, but they feel that they're, well, I actually maybe now I should be paid more because I'm actually doing more. What happens on that interpersonal kind of level?
Yeah, yeah. There's no one size fits all approach when it comes to this, and those types of scenarios exist everywhere. It doesn't matter if you have the best compensation programs and foundation in place. There's always going to be someone paid more than the other person. And so as a company, start analyzing that now, right? Like whether, this bill gets enacted or not, those are the types of things that companies should be looking at regardless. And so, also it's determining like in those types of situations, I think the thing is like, oh, this is going to cost us a lot of money if we now have to look at person A versus person B and bring them up. Like that could be millions and millions of dollars, but it doesn't have to be that way, right? Like a lot of companies will take a tiered approach, or they'll be very transparent with people and say, look, from a financial perspective, we do have some gaps to the market. We do have a plan to right size it. Or, it's leaning into like top performers and making sure that you're maybe spending those dollars on your very highly performing employees.
Yeah. Yeah.
No one
Hey,
size
look,
fits all.
no
Yeah.
one size fits all. Look, you've got vast experience here, and you're doing this at Deel. When we think about, New Zealand employers, from your
Mhm.
experience at Deel,
Yeah.
especially because we live in a global market, for people who are
Yeah.
hiring across borders, what advice for them?
I always say it's global scale, local nuance. Again, this ties into the compensation economist in me, which is, at Deal, we're a global company, but I'm looking at things in a very localized perspective. And so, again, it's not a one size fits all approach. I think that you need those consistent principles, but flexibility when it comes to, country by country. And, the expectations around pay, they vary dramatically depending on the country, even sometimes down to the city level. And so it's taking that one, not that one size fits all approach. The analogy that I always use is compensation is like a box, right? You want to make it not too small to where people feel very restricted in the box, but you don't want to make it too big to where there's method, like you have to have method to the madness to
Yeah,
keep it contained.
yeah.
So it's building it like a box.
Yeah, and I know for a lot of years down here, we said, look, we can't pay what a lot of some of the other countries do, but look at the lifestyle. I guess that's a part
Yeah,
of that package as well to say, hey, look, this is where it is financially, but here are the various other parts of that compensation that might play into
exactly.
things. Yeah.
Exactly.
Hey,
Well,
look,
and again, the cost of labor differs very, very differently in every location. And so like you have to take that into account also.
yeah.
Yeah.
Look, as you said, we're a little behind some of the others. There's a number of jurisdictions, the EU, the USA, they're very advanced in their pay transparency legislation. So,
Mhm.
what does that mean for New Zealand companies who are operating or who are looking to operate in those markets? What should they be aware of?
I mean, again, I think it's making sure that you're compliance ready now. I think with uh legislation and bills like this, I feel like it's only a matter of time before it really starts to make its way to again many countries, even beyond New Zealand. And so it's making sure that that you're ready, you have the foundation. I keep telling other companies that if you're not thinking about this now, you're already behind. It's coming fast. And again, sometimes we don't have the luxury of waiting. And ultimately, you want to be able to, whether you do have paid transparency in your country or not, you still want to be able to differentiate and show that there's fairness and clarity in your approach to compensation.
Yeah. Who do you reckon's the most
It's coming.
who's the most extreme, the most advanced in pay transparency? Any markets where you got your little name badge on, you've got a little special color around the edge to denote the pay zone that you're in? Who's really pushing this?
I would say I actually think the US is very advanced in this, especially in states like California and New York. Um, I've also seen I've also seen companies just say, you know what, enough with the regulation. I'm just going to take the proactive approach and just be transparent already, whether that's posting your ranges internally, just saying, you know what, I don't care what the regulation is. I'm just going to post it on my job postings, or if people ask for it internally, I'm going to give it to them. And again, like I think that those companies that are coming out and being proactive are going to have a competitive edge against companies that aren't. Because
Yeah,
again, it builds that like natural human trust that, you know what, my pay is fair and they care about pay and they're not trying to hide things from me. So let's just take the guesswork out of it and be proactive.
yeah. Because secrets
Yeah.
will out at some point, won't they?
They're going to come out. They're going to come
Yeah,
out, or I'm going to Google and come up with my own
yeah.
narrative, and that narrative may not be aligned to your philosophy. Why go through the hassle?
Why go through the hassle? Hey, look,
Why go through the hassle?
single biggest mistake that you think people might make if they try to fudge it around the edges, or is there a common thing where people are new to this and you see it time and time again? You go, don't do that, don't do that.
Yeah, again, I think it's just trying to the one size fits all approach. And really it's don't underestimate the emotional attachment to this. So this again, people for most people go to work for a paycheck. And if there are secrets around your paycheck, then it's going to dilute that trust that you have. So, don't look at this as just a legislative, directive, but an emotional for something that's so emotionally attached to people.
Absolutely. For anyone who's been listening to this and thinking, "Gosh, I've really got to get my head around this," what's one or two things they could do, just to uh, understand it a little more, the pitfalls, the benefits, other than
Mhm.
obviously re-listening to this.
Yeah, other than re-listening to this or contacting Jessica Pillow or Deal.
Exactly.
I think yeah, or
And that's Deal with a
exactly.
Deel if you can't see Jessica's shirt. Just there you go. It's deal.com, I think, isn't it? It's easy.
Yes. Yes, exactly. Um, yeah, I think it's my thing is my first thing is talk to your leadership team. Just be a thought leader. Sit down with them and say, "Hey, what do you think about this? Like, what do you like? Let's practically, what do you think about this?" There's also a ton of material out there that people can sift through and read or listen to, but you have to do what's best for your organization. And so I think my first stop is actually talk to your leadership team and
Yeah,
see how they want to approach it and be and and make it a very thoughtful conversation about, weighing the pros and cons to each thing and investments that may need to be made. But there really there's so much information out there right now around this topic. I think it's one of the hottest topics globally right now, but it starts with
yeah.
your leadership team
It does.
and understanding their values. Yeah.
Yeah, and as I say, it's part of a global movement towards radical transparency in all facets of business. No, this is
Yeah.
just another little part of it, whether it's your supply chain or your whatever else it will be. Hey, last question. You've been around, you've seen a lot of this. You've come from the very, hush hush, or we're going to get legal on you if you tell anyone, through to, I guess, you've seen some pretty extreme examples of transparency. Single best
Yeah.
outcome that you've ever seen around this?
Actually, I worked for a large retailer in 2000. So in 2007 to 2009, we actually, so that's like, I mean, you're talking
God, that's a
years
hundred
ago,
years ago.
at
A
least a
it's a
hundred years
lifetime ago.
ago.
Yeah.
Yeah, when we were printing our spreadsheets versus, ChatGPT doing everything, right? And so we actually took the approach of saying, you know what, we're going to be fully transparent. And we posted our salary ranges. This is in 2008. We posted our salary ranges, but we spent the time educating. That is the single most amount of time that I spent. It was around education. And it was this, oh no, people are gonna riot. There's gonna be pitchforks. They're not gonna understand. It was quiet. It was so quiet. Of course, you have the outlier questions, but even in 2008, we took the radical approach of being fully transparent to everybody. It was 10,000 people in the company. And it was fine. And it was fine. So
Well, there you go.
it was
Brilliant.
fine.
Look, folks, it's going to be
Gonna be
okay.
okay.
We've had the word from Jessica Pillow, Global Total Rewards Leader at Deel. She says it's going to be fine. And I'll tell you what, if anyone knows, she knows. If you've got any more questions, you can, I'm sure, get in touch with Jessica or any one of the team at Deel, or indeed just ask HRNZ. Thank you, Jessica. You're currently in France, aren't you?
I am in France today. Yes, I am.
How's,
Yes.
how's, how's France working out? Great.
It has been very hot, but we've so far so good. All the croissants. So
Hey, with a very transparent pay structure and pricing range. Brilliant. Hey, look, thank you so much, Jessica from Deal. And as I say, if you've got any more questions about this, contact HRNZ, or indeed flop onto. Do you flop onto a website? Is that a thing?
we could flip onto a
Let's
website. Yeah.
flop onto it. It's 2025. Language is changeable. Hey, look, flip over to the Deal website or somewhere like that, and they will certainly be able to help you out. From us for now at HRNZ, look, we've got a swag of podcasts. This is the first one. We've had a whole lot that you can listen to on all things HR related, and we do encourage you. If there is anything that you think, gosh, I'd like to know more about that, we're always happy to chat about it. Get in touch with the HRNZ team. From me, for now, goodbye.